Spiritual dependence. There are moments in every human being's life when the world falls away, when the noise fades, when the distractions and the opinions of others dissolve into silence. And in that stillness, we find ourselves standing naked before the truth of who we really are. It's in these moments, in the depths of solitude, that we discover a truth far deeper than any surface-level accomplishment. A truth that is written in the stars, in the fabric of our very being. A truth that echoes through the corridors of time, from the great minds of history to the simplest hearts that ever lived. We are not made for fleeting approval. We are not made for the applause of the world or the empty praise of others. We are not made to chase after wealth or material stability, for these things are but shadows that disappear with the setting sun. We are not made to live for the illusion of safety or comfort, for these are the chains that keep us bound to this earthly realm, forever distracted from the divine potential that lies within us. No, we were made for something far greater than all of this. We were made to be dependent on something far more powerful than ourselves. We were made to depend on the one constant force in this universe, God. And yet, how many of us truly live with this understanding? How many of us have surrendered our lives to the divine hand that holds the stars in place? How many of us have stopped seeking external validation, stopped chasing material wealth, stopped striving for worldly approval, and instead leaned into that stillness, trusting that in the solitude, in the quiet, we will find everything we need. It's easy to get lost in the noise of the world. It's easy to become consumed by the endless cycle of ambition and striving, to chase after success, to hunger for recognition, to thirst for security. We're taught from a young age that our worth is measured by our achievements, by how much we have, by how others see us. The world tells us that our value is wrapped up in our ability to perform, to produce, to win. But I ask you this: what happens when all of that is stripped away? What happens when success is no longer within reach? When the applause dies down? When the material things no longer satisfy? What happens when the things that once gave you comfort are gone, and you are left standing alone, without the distractions and attachments that once defined you? In these moments of solitude and isolation, we come face to face with a raw, unvarnished truth about ourselves. And it's in these moments that we realize we were never meant to depend on the world. We were never meant to rely on the fleeting, fragile things of this life. We were meant to depend on something far greater, something eternal, something unshakable. When you stand alone in the quiet of your own heart, when you feel the weight of the world lifting off your shoulders, when you stop chasing the empty promises of external success, that is when you begin to hear the voice of God. It is in these moments of stillness that your soul is awakened to the presence of the divine, and that is when your true dependence is revealed. You see, it is not the world that sustains you. It is not your job, your relationships, your achievements, your material possessions. No. These are the things that come and go, that rise and fall with the tides of fortune. But God is the rock upon which you stand, unchanging, eternal, always present. When you embrace this truth, when you fully surrender to the divine presence in your life, you begin to tap into a source of strength and power that cannot be found in anything worldly. You begin to realize that you are not defined by what you have or what others think of you. You are defined by your connection to the divine, by your faith in something greater than yourself. And it is here, in this sacred place of dependence, that you find your true freedom. The freedom to let go of the need for external validation. The freedom to release the grip of materialism. The freedom to stop chasing after things that can never truly satisfy your soul. When you stand in your dependence on God, you're no longer bound by the chains of this world. Now, I know that this may seem like a difficult concept to grasp, especially in a world that teaches us to depend on ourselves, to hustle, to grind, to fight for every inch of success. The world tells us that we are in control, that our destiny is ours to shape, that we must rely on our own strength to overcome every obstacle. But let me tell you, this true strength, true power, true success does not come from self-reliance. It does not come from pushing yourself harder, working longer, or accumulating more. True strength comes from surrender. It comes from recognizing that you are not in control, that you cannot do it all alone, and that there is a force greater than yourself that is guiding you, supporting you, and providing for you every step of the way. The greatest minds in history understood this. The men and women who changed the course of history were not those who depended solely on their own strength. No, they were the ones who understood the power of faith. They were the ones who knew that no matter how hard they worked, no matter how brilliant their ideas, no matter how determined they were, they could not accomplish their greatness without the guidance and support of the divine. Thomas Edison, the man who gave us the light bulb, did not rely solely on his own intellect. He understood that there was a greater intelligence at work in the universe. He prayed for guidance, and in his moments of frustration and failure, he turned to God for strength. Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men in history, understood that his success was not solely a product of his own effort. He built his empire on the foundation of faith, recognizing that his achievements were not his alone, but the result of divine providence. Walt Disney, the visionary who created the world's most iconic entertainment empire, did not let his failures define him. He persevered not by relying solely on his own willpower, but by trusting in the unseen hand of God, which guided him through the darkest of times. And Abraham Lincoln, the great president who led the nation through its most turbulent years, was a man of deep faith. It was not his strength alone that carried him through the Civil War, but his unwavering belief in the power of God to guide him in his decisions and actions. These men, and countless others, understood that true success is not built on self-reliance. It is built on spiritual dependence. They knew that no matter how hard they worked, no matter how skilled they were, no matter how many resources they had at their disposal, they could not accomplish their true purpose without the divine guidance that comes from trusting in something greater than themselves. And so it is with you. If you want to find true success, if you want to live a life that is filled with purpose, meaning, and fulfillment, then you must learn to trust in God. You must learn to surrender your need for control and embrace the truth that your true dependence lies not in the world, but in the divine. And when you do, you will find a strength that cannot be shaken. You will find a peace that surpasses understanding. You will find a purpose that cannot be taken from you, no matter what storms may come your way. Because when you depend on God, you are not relying on the whims of the world. You are relying on the unshakable foundation of the divine, and that foundation will hold you steady no matter what. So, I challenge you, step into that solitude. Step into the silence. Let go of the world's distractions. Let go of the need for approval, for security, for material success. And in that quiet, in that stillness, listen for the voice of God. Let Him be the source of your strength. Let Him be the foundation of your success. And as you do, you will find that the world's definition of success will no longer matter. You will find that the praise of others will no longer hold any weight. You will find that the things you once thought were important, the money, the fame, the status will no longer have any power over you, because you will have found something far greater. You will have found your true dependence. You will have found your dependence on God. And that, my friend, is where true freedom lies. Great figures in isolation. There are times in life when the world feels heavy, when it seems like everything around us is crumbling, slipping through our fingers like sand. We look to the future, only to see nothing but darkness. We look to the past, and we see nothing but the scars of battles fought and lost. It's in those moments that we feel the weight of isolation, the cold loneliness of being separated from everything we once knew. But here's the secret. Some of the greatest figures in history found their purpose not in their triumphs, not in the applause or the recognition, but in their isolation. It was in the silence, the stillness, the darkest corners of their lives where they encountered the divine. And it was through that connection, that faith, that they transformed their struggles into something far greater than they could have ever imagined. Take Abraham, for example, a man who was called to leave everything behind: his family, his country, his comfort, to journey into the unknown. He had no roadmap, no clear direction, only the promise of something greater. Abraham's faith was not forged in the glow of success or the comfort of security. It was forged in the wilderness, in the solitude of uncertainty. He walked through lands where no one knew his name. He faced trials that would have broken lesser men. There were moments of doubt, of fear, of longing for the familiar. But through it all, he held on to one thing: the belief that he was not alone, that the divine presence was with him, guiding him, even when everything around him seemed uncertain. It was in this isolation that Abraham found the strength to carry on. It was in this isolation that his faith was tested and refined. And through it, he became the father of nations. His faith turned his isolation into purpose. It turned his struggle into divine destiny. And then there's Joseph. Joseph was a dreamer, a young man with visions of greatness, with dreams that spoke of his future. But those dreams were met with betrayal. Sold by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, left for dead. His life seemed to be a constant cycle of rejection and hardship. Alone, forgotten, abandoned. But Joseph's story didn't end there. His isolation didn't break him. No, it made him stronger. It gave him the clarity he needed to understand that his life was not his own, that the pain he endured, the suffering he faced, was part of a greater plan. Even in the darkest moments, Joseph never lost sight of his connection to something higher. And it was that connection, that unwavering belief in the divine, that carried him through the years of prison, through the trials and the failures. In the end, Joseph rose to become a powerful leader, a man who would save nations and fulfill the dreams he had once seen. His isolation, like Abraham's, became the crucible where his faith was tested and his purpose revealed. Then there's Elijah, a prophet, a man chosen by God to deliver his message to a broken world. Elijah faced rejection, ridicule, and threats on his life. He lived in the wilderness, alone, in constant peril. And yet, it was in that very isolation that Elijah experienced the most profound encounters with the divine. On Mount Horeb, when the storms raged and the earthquakes shook the earth, Elijah found that God was not in the chaos, but in the still, small voice. It was in that moment of solitude that Elijah was reminded that God's power does not always come in grand gestures or dramatic displays. Sometimes, it comes in the quietest of whispers, in the moments of stillness when we are stripped of everything but our faith. Elijah's isolation didn't break him, it transformed him. It strengthened his connection to God and gave him the clarity he needed to continue his mission, to lead the people back to the truth. What these figures had in common: Abraham, Joseph, Elijah was not just their faith, but their ability to find purpose in their isolation. They didn't run from it. They didn't try to escape it. They embraced it. They leaned into it. And in doing so, they discovered that isolation is not a curse. It's a gift. It's in the solitude that we find our truest selves. It's in the silence that we hear the whispers of God's purpose for our lives. In today's world, we are often afraid of isolation. We fear being alone, being left out, being forgotten. We surround ourselves with noise, with distractions, with constant movement, because we believe that solitude is something to be avoided. But what if, instead of running from it, we leaned into it? What if we saw isolation not as something to fear, but as a powerful opportunity for growth? Think about your own life for a moment. Have you ever felt alone? Have you ever faced a moment of uncertainty where everything seemed to be falling apart? Have you ever been in a place where you felt abandoned, rejected, misunderstood? If you have, you're not alone. You are not the first to face those moments, and you won't be the last. The greatest figures in history were once where you are now. They once stood at the crossroads of despair, wondering if they could go on. But they chose to turn inward. They chose to find strength in their solitude. They chose to connect with something greater than themselves. Abraham didn't give up when he was called to leave everything behind. Joseph didn't give up when he was thrown into the pit. Elijah didn't give up when the world rejected him, and neither should you. When you feel isolated, when you feel alone, when the world seems to be closing in on you, take a step back, find a quiet place, close your eyes, and listen. Listen to the still, small voice within. Listen to the divine whispers that are always there, even in the silence, because it is in those moments of isolation that you will discover who you truly are. It is in those moments that you will find your purpose. You will find your strength. You will find your faith. The world will always try to distract you, to pull you away from what truly matters. But the greatest figures in history, Abraham, Joseph, Elijah, knew that true power comes from within. It comes from the connection to the divine that transcends all earthly struggles, all pain, all rejection. And that is where you will find your greatest strength. In your isolation, in your solitude, in the quiet moments when you're stripped of everything else. So when you feel alone, remember this: you are not alone. You are in the company of giants. You are in the company of those who found their greatest purpose not in the applause of the world, but in the whispers of the divine. You are in the company of those who transform their isolation into destiny. And you too can do the same. Refining process. There are moments in life that feel like you're standing still, the world moving around you, but you're stuck in a quiet place, waiting. Maybe it's a moment of solitude, a time when you feel unseen, unheard, as though your efforts are in vain. You can feel the pressure building inside, this longing for something greater. But the world seems to have forgotten you. And in those moments, in that silence, you might wonder, where is God? Where is my purpose? Why does it feel like I'm being left behind? What if I told you that in the silence, in the isolation, in the waiting, God is not abandoning you, He is refining you? What if I told you that it is in the quiet, in the stillness, that He is doing His most powerful work within you? What if that silence, that isolation, is not a punishment, but the greatest gift you could ever receive? You see, the refining process is not always loud. It's not always filled with dramatic breakthroughs or immediate results. It's not about being seen by the world or achieving success at every turn. The refining process often happens in the quiet moments, in the moments when it feels like you're alone, when everything seems uncertain and the results are nowhere to be found. This process, this divine work is happening inside of you. It is happening in the deepest parts of your soul, where you cannot see, where you cannot control. It is happening beneath the surface, where the old you is being stripped away and the new you is being born. And in that silence, in that waiting, God is preparing you for something greater than you could ever imagine. We often look at silence and isolation as signs of failure, signs that something has gone wrong. We see them as proof that we've been left behind, that our time has passed, that we are forgotten. But what if the truth is that we are not being abandoned at all? What if, instead, we are being refined, molded, shaped for the purpose that we are destined to fulfill? Consider the way metal is refined. When metal is extracted from the earth, it's raw, it's rough, it's unpolished, it's not yet what it can be. But in the fire, in the heat, in the silence of the forge, that metal is purified. It is melted down, reshaped, and transformed into something valuable, something stronger, something more capable of fulfilling its true purpose. The process is intense. It's hot. It's difficult. It's uncomfortable. But without it, the metal would remain nothing more than a lump of unrefined ore. And so it is with us. God's refining process is not always pleasant, but it is necessary. It's not meant to break us. It's meant to build us up. It's in the isolation, in the waiting, in the moments of uncertainty that God is working silently within us, removing the impurities, the doubts, the fears, the distractions. He is purifying our hearts, our minds, and our souls, preparing us for the greatness that lies ahead. But here's the key. The refinement doesn't happen all at once. It's a process. It takes time. It takes patience. And it requires trust. You may not see the results immediately. You may not understand the process while it's happening. But in the silence, in the isolation, God is at work, shaping you into the person you were always meant to be. Look at some of the greatest figures in history. They didn't achieve greatness by avoiding isolation or running from a silence. No, they embraced it. They understood that the quiet, the waiting, the struggle, these were all part of the process that would refine them, that would prepare them for their true purpose. Think about Thomas Edison. The man who gave us the light bulb spent years working in silence, in isolation, perfecting his craft. He failed time and time again, but he understood that every failure, every setback, every lonely night in the lab was part of the process. He didn't see the silence as abandonment. He saw it as an opportunity to grow, to refine his ideas, to get closer to his breakthrough. Or consider Abraham Lincoln. The man who would go on to lead a nation through its darkest hour spent years in solitude, struggling with his own doubts, his own fears. He faced failure after failure, rejection after rejection. But in those quiet moments, in those lonely times, he found the strength to continue. He allowed the silence to refine him, to prepare him for the immense responsibility that would one day fall on his shoulders. And what about Nelson Mandela? The man who fought against injustice, who spent 27 years in prison, isolated from the world. Those years in solitude were not wasted in that silence. Mandela was refined. He found strength he never knew he had. He found purpose in the darkness, knowing that his time would come. And when it did, he was ready. He was refined. He was prepared to lead a nation into freedom. These men didn't achieve greatness by avoiding the refining process. They embraced it. They trusted that the silence, the isolation, the waiting were all part of something greater, part of a purpose far beyond their understanding. And so it is with you. You may not see it now. You may feel like the world has forgotten you, like you've been left behind, like your dreams are slipping away. But I want you to know that this is not the end. This is the refining process. This is God working silently within you, shaping you, molding you, preparing you for what's to come. Trust the process. Trust that the silence is not abandonment, but preparation. Trust that every moment of isolation is part of the plan. Trust that every setback, every challenge, every moment of doubt is refining you, strengthening you, making you into the person that you are meant to be. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared. And when the time is right, when you are ready, God will use you in ways you never imagined. But it starts with trusting the process. It starts with embracing the silence. It starts with understanding that isolation is not a punishment. It is the forge that will turn you into something greater than you ever thought possible. So the next time you find yourself alone, the next time you find yourself in that moment of uncertainty, remember this. You are being refined. You are being shaped. You are being prepared. And in that silence, in that isolation, you are becoming who you were always meant to be. faith and strength. There is a moment in every person's life when everything falls apart, when the ground beneath your feet crumbles, when the path ahead seems lost in a fog of uncertainty. The dream that once burned bright in your chest flickers, struggling to survive in a world that seems determined to snuff it out. It's in these moments, when you feel the weight of the world bearing down on you, when your body is weak, when your mind is exhausted, that you are presented with a choice. The choice to stand firm in your faith, or to fall, consumed by the contradictions of life. Faith is not born in the easy moments. It is not born in times of comfort or abundance. It is not a concept that takes root when everything is going according to plan. Faith is built in the times when your heart is heavy, when you are drowning in doubt, when you are facing the impossible. It is in these moments of contradiction and weakness that the seeds of faith are sown. The world will tell you that faith is about seeing the end result. It will tell you that faith is about believing in the outcome, the success, the victory. But true faith is not about the victory at all. It is about trusting in the process, trusting in something greater than yourself, even when the outcome is unclear, even when the world tells you it's impossible. Faith is built when the storm rages around you, when the winds howl and the rain soaks you to your bones. It is in the darkest, most uncertain moments of your life that God's strength emerges. You may not see it, you may not feel it, but it is there, deep within you, quietly waiting to be called upon. It is in those moments of weakness, when you feel like you can't take another step, that the strength of God fills you up, providing a resilience you never thought possible. Look at the great figures of history. They didn't achieve greatness because everything was easy. No, they were tested in the fire. They were forged in the crucible of hardship, struggle, and adversity. And it was in those moments of contradiction, when all the world seemed to be against them, that their faith was made strong. Consider the life of Thomas Edison, a man who failed more times than most could ever count. He was told by many that his ideas were impossible, that he would never succeed. The world laughed at his vision, dismissed his relentless pursuit of progress. And yet, Edison did not give up. He did not allow the contradictions of his circumstances to break him. Instead, he built his faith, day by day, in the face of failure. His strength was not found in his successes. It was found in his ability to keep going when every part of him was telling him to stop. And in the end, his faith bore fruit. He gave the world the light bulb, a symbol of how belief in something greater than yourself can turn the impossible into the possible. Or consider the life of Nelson Mandela, a man who was imprisoned for nearly 3 decades, abandoned by many, cast aside by society. For years, he faced nothing but hardship and isolation, and yet, it was in that darkness, in that place of contradiction, that his faith was forged. It was not in the victory, but in the moments of adversity, that Mandela's true strength was born. He held on to the belief that something greater than himself was at work, that no matter how long it took, his purpose was to bring justice and freedom to his people. And when the time came, when the chains were finally broken, Mandela's faith in God and in his purpose was what gave him the strength to lead his nation to freedom. It is easy to have faith when everything is going well, when the sun is shining and the path is clear. But the true test of faith is not found in the easy times. It is found when everything seems lost, when you feel the weight of the world pressing down on you, when your strength is gone, and all you have left is belief. And in those moments, that is when God's strength emerges. It is in your weakness that his power becomes most evident. When you're at your lowest, when you're exhausted, when you feel as though you have nothing left to give, that is when God shows up. His strength is not made perfect in your strength. It is made perfect in your weakness. When you surrender, when you stop relying on your own power and trust in his, that is when the impossible becomes possible. That is when you find the resilience to keep going, to take one more step, even when it feels like you can't. It is in those moments that you will find peace. Not peace because everything is perfect. Not peace because everything is going according to plan. But peace that transcends understanding. Peace that comes from knowing that you are not alone. That there is something greater than you at work in your life. Something that is shaping you, refining you, and preparing you for what's to come. I know you've been through hard times. I know there have been moments when you've wondered if you could keep going, when you've felt like the weight of the world is just too much to bear. But I want you to hear this. You are not broken. You are being refined. You are being prepared for something greater. Your faith is being tested. And in that testing, it is growing stronger. And when you emerge from this trial, when you stand on the other side, you will be a new person, more resilient, more powerful, more capable than you ever imagined. But you must trust the process. You must trust that God's strength is at work in your life, even when you can't see it. You must trust that every moment of doubt, every moment of fear, every moment of weakness is part of the journey. It is part of the process that will turn you into the person you are meant to be. And here's the truth. The strength that you seek, the resilience that you crave, the peace that you long for, it is already within you. It's always been there. It's waiting to be called upon. You may not feel it right now. You may not see it, but it is there. You are stronger than you think. Your faith, your belief, your trust in God's power, these are the things that will carry you through. And when you step into your purpose, when you rise above your circumstances, you will look back and see that it was your faith that gave you the strength to overcome. So, no matter where you are right now, no matter how impossible things may seem, I want you to hold on to this. Your faith is being built. Your strength is being forged in the fire of adversity. And when you come through this, you will be a force to be reckoned with, unshakable and unstoppable. Trust in the process. Trust that God is at work in your life. And know this in your weakness. His strength is made perfect. Keep going. Keep believing. And know that everything you need is already within you, waiting to emerge. God's presence in crisis. There are moments in life when you reach the edge, the kind of edge where you can no longer see a way forward, a way out, or a way back. When everything you've built crumbles, when every door closes, when every path seems blocked. It's as if the weight of the world falls on your shoulders. The future blurs into uncertainty, and every ounce of strength you've ever known evaporates into the air, leaving you with nothing but emptiness. In those moments, when it seems like there are no more options, when you have nowhere else to turn, that is when God steps in. Crisis isn't just a moment of challenge. It's a test, a deepening of faith, a fire that refines your soul. But it's not a fire that destroys. It's the fire that reveals your true strength. The strength that is found not in your own power, but in God's. It's in those darkest moments, when every earthly resource is exhausted and every human effort fails, that God's presence becomes most profound. When all else seems lost, that is when he arrives. And he doesn't just offer comfort, he offers transformation. He steps into the middle of your crisis and fills you with the strength to keep moving, the peace to endure, and the purpose to rise again. The greatest moments of change in history were not birthed in times of ease. They didn't emerge from calm waters or perfect circumstances. They came from crisis, from the deepest moments of struggle. Think about the lives of the leaders who changed the world, the visionaries who shaped the future. They were not exempt from hardship. They weren't immune to the pain of failure, to the trials that tested their resolve. No, they went through the fires, but it was in those fires that they found something greater than themselves. They found the presence of God. Consider the life of Abraham Lincoln, a man who led a nation through its darkest time, a man who faced overwhelming odds, defeat and despair. Lincoln didn't stand at the helm of his presidency surrounded by success. He was thrust into a civil war, a time of division, hate, and violence. Every decision he made was weighed down by the burden of the lives lost, the fracture of a nation. But in the middle of that crisis, when everything seemed impossible, when it felt like he had no answers and no way forward, that's when Lincoln's faith in God deepened, his resolve strengthened, and his vision for the country became clearer. In his darkest hours, he turned to prayer, to the divine strength that transcended human capacity. And it was through that divine presence that Lincoln found the courage to continue, to make choices that would shape history. He was not working alone. God was with him, offering him the strength to lead, even when everything around him was crumbling. Or look at the life of Thomas Edison, a man who revolutionized the world with his inventions, who brought light to the darkness of the unknown. Edison failed thousands of times before he ever succeeded. His path was not paved with instant breakthroughs. It was filled with repeated failure, ridicule, and doubt. Yet, in the face of crushing adversity, when the world mocked him and every effort seemed futile, Edison didn't give up. He leaned into the crisis, and in that place of hopelessness, he found God's guidance. Every failure became a stepping stone to success, each one refining his vision, strengthening his resolve, until one day, light itself emerged from the darkness. It was in their crisis moments, in the moments of deepest pain and struggle, that they didn't just discover who they were, they discovered God's presence within them. And that is the gift that comes in the midst of crisis. When you have no one else to rely on, when there is no backup plan, when you've exhausted every option, God steps in. But here's the thing, we often look at crisis as something to be avoided, as a curse or a punishment. But what if crisis is not something to run from, but something to embrace? What if it's in the very heart of your most difficult moments that you encounter the presence of God in a way you never could have imagined? What if crisis is not the end of the road, but the beginning of a new chapter, a deeper level of connection to God's purpose for your life? When you're at your lowest, when the world has stripped away every illusion of security, it is then that God's power is revealed in its fullest form. When your strength is gone, when your resources are spent, when your heart is broken, that is when His strength emerges. Not in your ability to perform, but in your willingness to trust. Trust that God is working through you. Trust that He is carrying you through. Trust that even in the storm, there is peace to be found. There are stories in the Bible, stories that echo through time, of people who found their purpose in the middle of crisis. Think of Moses, standing at the edge of the Red Sea, with Pharaoh's army closing in, the sea before him, and no way out. It was in that moment of crisis, with nowhere else to turn, that Moses heard God's voice, that he found the faith to part the waters and lead his people to safety. It was not in the absence of crisis, but in the midst of it that Moses discovered the power of divine intervention. And what about Job, a man who lost everything, his wealth, his health, his family? He sat in the ashes, broken and alone, with nothing but his faith. His crisis was unimaginable, but in the middle of his deepest suffering, when everything seemed lost, God spoke to him, reminded him of His presence, and restored everything that was taken from him. It was through the crisis that Job found not just restoration, but a deeper, more profound understanding of God's sovereignty. Even the life of Jesus, a man who knew suffering and crisis beyond what most of us could ever comprehend. He faced betrayal, abandonment, and the agony of the cross. But it was through the ultimate crisis, the ultimate sacrifice, that the greatest victory of all was achieved. God did not abandon Jesus in His moment of crisis. He gave Him the strength to endure, the peace to overcome, and a purpose to fulfill his mission on earth. These stories are not just ancient texts. They are reminders to us all that crisis is not a punishment but a proving ground. It is where faith is tested, where God's strength is made perfect, where we discover the depth of our purpose. It is where we see the truth that God doesn't just step in when everything is going well. He steps in when the ground beneath our feet gives way, when our options run out, when we are left with nothing but the choice to trust. Right now, you might be standing at the edge of your own crisis. Maybe it's a health crisis, a financial crisis, a relationship crisis, or a crisis of purpose. The weight feels unbearable, the road ahead uncertain. But I want you to understand something. This is not the end. It is the beginning. It is the moment where God is ready to step in, to offer you the strength you need to keep moving forward, the peace to calm your soul, and the purpose to rise above your circumstances. When you reach the end of your rope, when your back is against the wall, when you feel that you can't go any further, remember, God is with you. He will never leave you. He will meet you in your crisis, and He will turn your struggle into a testimony. He will take your brokenness and create something beautiful from it. This is the power of His presence in crisis. It doesn't just carry you through. It transforms you, it strengthens you, and it shapes you into the person you were always meant to be. So stand firm. Embrace the crisis, not as the end, but as the beginning of a new chapter. Know that in the middle of your struggle, in the deepest depths of your pain, God's presence is there, offering you strength, peace, and purpose. You are not alone. You will rise from this, stronger than you ever thought possible. And when you do, you will look back and see that it was God's presence in the crisis that led you to the victory. Grace and power. There are moments in life when the weight of the world presses down so hard that it feels like you can't breathe. When everything seems lost, when you've exhausted every ounce of strength and you're left standing in the rubble of your own struggles. You've tried everything you know. You've worked yourself to the bone. You've given it all you've got, but still the ground beneath you shakes. The walls close in, and it feels as if victory is just out of reach. It's in these moments, when everything you've worked for seems like it's slipping away, when all your effort seems futile, that the true power of grace reveals itself. Grace is not something you can earn. It is not something you can work for. It is not something that comes because you've been good enough or strong enough. Grace comes not because you've proven your worth, but because of something far greater. It is God's love and mercy reaching down, lifting you up when you can't lift yourself. It is the force that sustains you, even in your weakest moments, giving you strength when you've run out of it, offering peace when chaos surrounds you. Grace is not for the perfect. It is not for the strong, the capable, or the self-sufficient. Grace is for the broken. It's for the ones who've stumbled, who've fallen, who've faced defeat, and who've experienced pain. It's for the ones who feel like they don't deserve it. It's for you when you feel like there is nothing left to give, nothing left to hold on to. And here's the most powerful part: grace doesn't ask if you've earned it. It doesn't wait for you to be strong enough, good enough, worthy enough. Grace doesn't care about your past mistakes, your shortcomings, or your failures. It doesn't wait until you've perfected yourself or your circumstances. It comes to you in your lowest moments, when you're at your weakest, because that is when it is needed most. Think about the moments in history when grace was the force that turned despair into victory. Take a look at the lives of those who have achieved greatness, those who've risen from the ashes of adversity, not because of their own strength, but because they were carried by grace. These are the stories of men and women who, in the midst of their deepest struggles, found the power to overcome, not because they had it within themselves, but because grace carried them. Consider the life of Abraham Lincoln, a man who faced personal and professional failure at nearly every turn, a man who fought against unimaginable odds to preserve a nation torn by civil war. Lincoln didn't lead because he had all the answers, or because he was immune to doubt. He led because in the face of unimaginable challenge, he allowed grace to guide him. It was in the depths of his despair, in the moments when the weight of the war seemed insurmountable, that he found the strength to keep going. Grace was the invisible force that held him up, that gave him the clarity to make decisions that changed the course of history. Or look at Walt Disney, a visionary who faced countless setbacks. Disney was rejected by newspapers, mocked by competitors, and suffered multiple failures before the world ever knew his name. But in those moments, when his dreams seemed unreachable, when his vision seemed impossible, he didn't give up. He didn't walk away. He relied on grace, a divine force that sustained him when everything else had fallen apart. It was grace that gave him the persistence to continue, to keep believing, even when the world said no. And it was grace that turned his impossible dreams into reality. In the Bible, there are countless examples of grace stepping in during the darkest moments of human history. When Moses stood at the Red Sea with the Egyptian army closing in, he didn't have the power to part the waters. He didn't have the strength to fight back the tide. But in that moment of crisis, grace stepped in. The sea was parted, and the Israelites walked to safety, not because of Moses' strength, but because God's grace provided a way when there seemed to be no way. Or think about the Apostle Paul, a man who was once a persecutor of Christians, a man who lived with guilt and shame. But grace met him on the road to Damascus, transforming him from a man of violence to one of the greatest evangelists of the Christian faith. Paul didn't earn this transformation. He didn't deserve it. But grace, in its divine mercy, lifted him up, transforming his life and his purpose. This is the true power of grace. It steps in when there is no way forward. It lifts you up not because you've earned it, but because of the unrelenting love and mercy of God. Grace takes you from your weakest point and carries you toward your greatest potential. But grace is not just something that sustains you in the past. It is not just a force that was given to the great figures of history. Grace is available to you right now, in your present struggle, in your present crisis, and it is the most powerful force in the universe to lift you from the ashes of your failure, to carry you when you feel like you can't go on, and to guide you towards your greatest purpose. Think about where you are today. What are the challenges that seem insurmountable? What obstacles have you faced that feel like they will break you? How many times have you tried and failed, struggled and fallen, only to get up and try again, but still found yourself knocked down? Grace is there for you in those moments. It is not waiting for you to get everything right, to have it all together. It is there, ready to sustain you, ready to give you strength when you have none left, ready to carry you when you can't carry yourself. Grace doesn't ask for perfection. It doesn't demand that you be worthy before it steps in. It doesn't look at your past failures or mistakes and turn away. It looks at you in your brokenness, in your pain, and it offers you the strength to rise. Grace is what gives you the power to keep going when everything else says to quit. It is what keeps you standing when you feel like falling. It's the quiet whisper in the chaos, the steady hand in the storm, the peace when the world is crumbling around you. And when you allow that grace to enter your life, when you surrender your need to earn it, when you open yourself to the mercy and love of God, that is when true power is released. You are no longer relying on your own strength, your own abilities, or your own willpower. You are relying on the divine strength of grace, a strength that is limitless, eternal, and unshakable. So let go. Let go of the weight of self-reliance. Let go of the burden of perfection. Let go of the idea that you have to be good enough or strong enough to deserve grace. Instead, embrace it. Embrace the love and mercy that is offered freely, the power that comes not from your own efforts, but from the unshakable foundation of God's love. And in that embrace, you will find strength beyond measure. Grace is a force that sustains you in your weakest moments. It is the quiet power that lifts you when you have nothing left. It is the love of God reaching down to you, not because you've earned it, but because you are His child, and He will never leave you or forsake you. When you embrace this grace, when you allow it to fill you up, you will find a strength that is unshakable, a peace that transcends understanding, and a power that is unstoppable. You are not alone. You are not helpless. You are not broken. You're being carried by the love and grace of God. And with that grace, you will rise. You will rise, and you will find that the power of grace has made you stronger than you ever imagined. It has transformed your weakness into strength, your despair into hope, and your failure into victory. This is the power of grace. It is the force that sustains you, the force that lifts you, the force that empowers you to become all that you were meant to be. God's restoration. There are moments in life that leave us shattered. Moments where we are broken beyond recognition, where our dreams lie in ruins, and our hearts are torn by loss. The pain is unbearable, the grief suffocating, and it feels as if the world itself is mourning with us. In these moments, we find ourselves standing in the ashes of what once was, surrounded by the wreckage of our own hopes. But here is the truth that we need to grasp. God does not just comfort in sorrow. He restores, and His restoration is not just a return to what was. It is the transformation of what is, the turning of mourning into joy, and the giving of beauty in exchange for ashes. You see, God's restoration doesn't just repair what is broken. It doesn't just patch up the cracks or cover over the wounds. No. God's restoration goes deeper than that. It is a complete transformation. When God restores, He doesn't just give you back what you have lost. He makes you stronger, more resilient, more powerful, and more beautiful than you were before. He takes the pain, the sorrow, and the brokenness, and He turns it into something far greater. Think about the process of refining gold. When gold is mined from the earth, it is raw, impure, and full of imperfections. But it is placed in the fire, heated to incredible temperatures, and all the impurities are burned away. What remains is pure gold, more valuable, more refined, more beautiful than it was before. This is the power of restoration. It is the process of being purified, being strengthened, being made whole again, but in a way that far exceeds your original state. Look at the lives of those who have gone through the fire of hardship and come out stronger on the other side. Think of Thomas Edison, who failed over 1,000 times before he perfected the light bulb. He could have quit. He could have accepted defeat. But each failure was a part of his restoration, a part of his refining. Each setback strengthened his resolve, clarified his purpose, and ultimately led him to the discovery that would change the world. His story is not one of constant success, but of relentless restoration, turning every failure into a stepping stone toward greatness. Abraham Lincoln, pun 2, faced a lifetime of struggles and losses. Before becoming the president who would lead America through its darkest days, he endured failure in business, rejection in politics, and personal heartache. Yet, in the face of all this, he emerged as one of the greatest leaders in history. His restoration didn't come overnight, but over years of perseverance, faith, and trust in God's plan. He didn't just overcome his personal struggles, he transformed them into the strength needed to preserve a nation and bring about justice. And then there is the story of Joseph, whose life is a testament to the power of God's restoration. Sold into slavery by his brothers, falsely accused and thrown into prison. Joseph's life was filled with unimaginable hardship, yet every step of his journey, every moment of pain, was part of a greater plan. It was through his suffering that he was prepared for greatness. And when the time came, God elevated him to a position of power where he could save nations. Joseph's story is not just one of survival, but of restoration. God took what was meant for evil and turned it into good. But what about you? What about the times when you feel like you're lost in the ashes? When the pain is too great? When the grief too overwhelming? Where is God's restoration in your life? Maybe it feels like your story is still unfolding in the valley with no way out. Maybe you've been knocked down again and again, and each time you rise, it feels like something else gets torn apart. Let me tell you this, no matter where you are right now, no matter how deep your sorrow, no matter how broken your dreams may seem, God is at work in your life. He is not just standing by, watching you suffer. He is walking with you, restoring you, making you whole again. His restoration is not an event, it is a process. And sometimes that process takes time. Sometimes it feels like nothing is happening. But that's when we need to trust that He is doing something in the unseen, working behind the scenes, preparing us for something greater. There is a beautiful promise in the Bible that says, He will give you beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, and the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. This is God's promise of restoration, that even in your deepest sorrow, He will turn your mourning into joy. He will take the ashes of your brokenness and exchange them for something beautiful. And it is in this exchange that you will discover a new strength, a new purpose, and a new vision for your life. But the key to experiencing this restoration is in your willingness to surrender, to trust that God is at work, even when you can't see it, and to have the faith that His plan for your life is greater than the pain you're experiencing right now. Just like the gold in the fire, you must be willing to endure the heat in order to emerge stronger, purer, and more beautiful than before. It is not an easy process, but it is a necessary one. This restoration doesn't mean that the pain will disappear instantly. It doesn't mean that you won't feel the weight of your losses, the heaviness of your grief, or the scars of your struggles, but it means that those things will not define you. They will not hold you back. They will not keep you stuck in the past, because in the hands of God, even your deepest wounds can become the source of your greatest strength. Look at the lives of the great figures who've been through their own trials and come out transformed. Think of the Apostle Paul, who endured suffering, beatings, and imprisonment. He was not immune to hardship, but in his suffering, he found a deeper purpose, a greater understanding of God's grace, and a greater power to carry out his mission. Paul's restoration wasn't just physical, it was spiritual, and that is the power of God's restoration. It doesn't just heal your wounds, it transforms your heart, your mind, and your spirit. God's restoration is not just about returning you to where you were before, it's about elevating you, refining you, and preparing you for something greater. When you allow God to restore you, you open yourself to the possibility of becoming more than you ever imagined, stronger, wiser, and more aligned with your divine purpose. But how do we experience this restoration? How do we allow God's grace to move in our lives in such a profound way? It begins with surrender. It begins with letting go of the need to control, the need to fix everything on your own, the need to make sense of every setback. It begins with trusting that God's love and mercy are greater than your pain, that His plan for you is greater than the devastation you see before you. And when you surrender, when you trust, when you allow God to do His work in your life, you will begin to feel the transformation take place, slowly at first, perhaps, but in time. You will see how the pieces of your life come together in ways you never expected. The beauty for ashes, the joy for mourning, the strength from weakness. This is not just a promise for the future. It is a promise for now, right where you are, in the middle of your pain, in the middle of your heartache. God is at work. He is restoring. He is healing. He is transforming. So, no matter where you find yourself today, no matter how broken, no matter how lost you feel, know this: God is at work in your life. He is not abandoning you. He is not leaving you in the ashes. He is lifting you up, carrying you, restoring you to something greater. And when His work is complete, you will look back and see that the pain was not the end of your story. It was just the beginning of your transformation. Trust in God's restoration. Embrace the process and know that He will turn your mourning into joy, your ashes into beauty, and your brokenness into strength. You are being restored. And that restoration is leading you to a purpose far greater than you ever imagined. Silence and intimacy with God. There is a sacred place, one that exists not in the noise of the world, but in the quiet. Still moments when everything else fades away. In the chaos, the distractions, the constant hum of life. It can feel impossible to find it. But in the silence and solitude, that's where truth begins to speak. Love begins to resonate, and power begins to move. The world tells us to seek success, to chase after approval, to be louder, more visible, more present. But the truth is that in the silence, in the moments when we stop striving and simply listen, that's where we encounter God in a way that transforms us. We live in a world that is constantly moving, a world filled with noise, the chatter of social media, the pressure of expectations, the relentless pursuit of more. But in the midst of all that noise, there is a quiet that beckons us, a call that pulls us into the depths of our soul. It is in these moments of solitude, when everything else fades away, that we find clarity, peace, and intimacy with God. It's here that we are free from the distractions, free from the need to prove ourselves, and free to hear the whispers of truth that define our lives. Think about the great figures in history, the ones whose lives have left a mark on the world. They weren't just successful because of their action and determination. They found moments of stillness, moments where they could listen, moments where they could connect with something deeper than themselves. Thomas Edison, who brought light to the world, didn't just work tirelessly. He spent countless hours in solitude, listening for the spark of inspiration. Abraham Lincoln, who led the nation through its darkest days, spent hours alone in prayer, seeking guidance and wisdom from a higher power. They understood that the power to create, the strength to lead, and the clarity to make decisions came not from constant action, but from quiet reflection, from being still enough to hear God's voice. It's easy to think that we must always be doing something, that our value is tied to our productivity, to our success. But the truth is that there is power in the silence. There is power in solitude. Because when we step away from the noise of the world, when we stop and allow ourselves to be still, we make space for God to speak into our lives. In those moments, we stop trying to control everything. We stop pretending to have all the answers. We stop living for others and start living for ourselves, for the truth that lies deep within. Silence, in this way, becomes not just the absence of noise, but a place of connection, a space where intimacy with God can flourish. And when we allow ourselves to enter into this silence, we open the door to a level of transformation that cannot be found anywhere else. Because it's in these moments of quiet that we find the truth of who we really are, stripped of the masks, the personas, the expectations. We find a deep, intimate connection to the divine, to a power greater than ourselves that gives us clarity, guidance, and strength. In the quiet, we encounter love, love that doesn't demand, love that doesn't expect, love that simply is. This love is not contingent upon our achievements, our success, or our failures. It is love that exists because we are worthy of it. Simply because we are. In the silence, we can experience this love fully, without distractions, without needing to prove ourselves. This is the love that changes everything. It heals, it transforms, it empowers. It's a love that doesn't judge, but lifts us up. A love that whispers the deepest truths of who we are and what we are meant to become. And in that silence, the noise of the world fades. The pressures of the world fade. The anxiety, the worry, the doubt, all of it fades away. And all that is left is the truth of who you are and the presence of God that fills the emptiness. This is where real power lies, not in doing more, not in proving yourself, but in simply being. In being still enough to hear the divine calling that rests deep within you, calling you to greatness, calling you to purpose, calling you to your true self. Think about the quiet moments in your own life, the times when you've been alone with your thoughts, when the world outside seemed to vanish, and you were left with just you and the divine. Maybe it was a time of prayer, a moment of deep reflection, or even a quiet walk in nature. In those moments, you found peace. In those moments, the clutter of your mind settled, and you were able to hear the whisper of truth that had been waiting for you. Those moments are powerful because they are sacred. They are where God's presence enters into your life in the most profound way. And they are where true transformation begins. When we are constantly surrounded by noise and distractions, it becomes easy to lose sight of who we really are. We start chasing after the wrong things: fame, approval, success, and we forget that the true power lies in the intimate connection we have with God. But when we step into the silence, we rediscover that connection. We rediscover who we are meant to be, and the truth that lies at the heart of our existence. It is in these moments that we begin to understand the depth of our purpose and the power that comes from being aligned with the divine. Now, think about the world around us. It's a world that constantly tells us to be louder, to be more visible, to make our mark, to be noticed. But in all the noise, we lose sight of what truly matters. We start to define ourselves by what others think of us, by how much we have, by what we've achieved. But when we enter into the silence, when we turn off the distractions and simply listen, we hear a different message. We hear that we are enough just as we are. We hear that our value is not in what we accomplish, but in who we are in God's eyes. And this is the foundation of true power, knowing that we are loved, knowing that we are guided, and knowing that our purpose is not defined by the world, but by something greater. This intimacy with God, this connection, is where the true transformation begins. It's not in the striving, not in the endless pursuit of more, but in the quiet moments when we surrender to the divine, when we trust that we are exactly where we need to be, and when we stop trying to force things and start allowing them to unfold. In the silence, we release our grip on control, and we trust that the divine plan for our lives is greater than anything we could have imagined. But here's the truth. Silence doesn't always come easily. It's hard to quiet the mind, especially in a world that constantly demands our attention. It's hard to be still when there are so many distractions, so many voices telling us what to do, who to be, and how to live. But the power of silence lies in our willingness to embrace it. It lies in our ability to step away from the noise, to create space for God to move, to trust that in the stillness, we will find exactly what we need. This isn't something that happens overnight. It's a practice, it's a discipline, but the more we create space for silence, the more we will experience the intimacy with God that transforms us. The more we allow ourselves to be still, the more we will hear the whisper of divine guidance that leads us to greater clarity, greater purpose, and greater strength. And in those moments of intimacy, we are changed. We are no longer defined by the noise of the world, but by the love and power that comes from God. We find our true self, our true purpose, and we discover the strength to live in alignment with that truth. A silence is not empty. It is full of potential. It is full of God's presence. It is full of truth. And it is in that space that you will find the strength to rise above the noise, to rise above the expectations, and to live a life that is true to who you are. The power is in the quiet. And when you embrace it, you will find that everything you need is already within you. You just need the silence to hear it. Wilderness as preparation. There are moments in life when it feels like everything is falling apart. You've worked tirelessly. You've pushed yourself to the limit, and yet nothing seems to go your way. You feel alone. You feel abandoned. And it's as if the world has turned its back on you. In these moments, when everything around you seems to be crumbling, it's easy to think that you're being punished, that the struggle is a sign that you're not good enough, not worthy enough, or not strong enough. But the truth is far more profound than that. The wilderness, that place of isolation, hardship, and struggle is not a punishment. It is preparation. When we think of the wilderness, we often think of harsh conditions, the absence of comfort, the feeling of being lost. But in reality, the wilderness is a place where transformation happens. It's a place where God refines us, shapes us, and prepares us for the greater purpose that lies ahead. It is a place where we are stripped of everything that is not essential and left with the raw essence of who we truly are. And it is in this place that we discover the strength, resilience, and character that will carry us through the challenges to come. This is the story of Moses. This is the story of David. And it is the story of countless others who, in their darkest hours, found the light of purpose that would guide them to greatness. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness, tending sheep, seemingly far removed from his destiny. But it was in that wilderness that God prepared him to lead a nation, to part the Red Sea, and to deliver the Israelites from slavery. If Moses had never spent those years in isolation, in hardship, in what seemed like purposelessness, he would not have been ready for the calling that awaited him. The wilderness was not his punishment, it was his preparation. David, too, spent years in the wilderness, anointed as king while still a young shepherd. David's path to the throne was anything but direct. Instead of ascending to power, he was hunted by Saul, forced to flee into the wilderness, where he lived in constant danger. But it was in that wilderness that David became the warrior, leader, and king that Israel needed. It was in that wilderness that David's faith was refined, his character shaped, and his heart prepared to lead a nation. Both Moses and David's stories remind us that the wilderness is not the end. It is not a place where dreams die. It is the crucible where our faith is tested, where we are shaped into the people we are meant to become, and where we are prepared for the purpose that God has laid before us. We all go through wilderness seasons. Some may be long and brutal. Others may feel like they drag on endlessly, with no clear end in sight. These seasons might look different for each of us. A season of personal loss, a season of failure, a season of solitude, or a season where nothing seems to go right. We might feel abandoned, as if the promises we once held close are slipping through our fingers. But I want you to hear this clearly. The wilderness is a place of preparation, not abandonment. It is a place where God is working within you, even when you cannot see it. It is where He is stripping away your reliance on the things of this world and teaching you to rely on Him alone. In the wilderness, you discover your true strength. You find out who you are when everything is stripped away. You learn to lean into the one constant that never fails you, God's presence. It is in the wilderness that you are forced to confront your weaknesses, to face your doubts, and to wrestle with your fears. And it is in the wilderness that you are refined and molded into a person capable of stepping into your destiny. Consider the story of Joseph, a young man who had dreams of greatness, who saw himself in a position of power and influence. But his journey to greatness was not immediate. Instead, Joseph found himself betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and imprisoned for something he didn't even do. His path seemed to go in the opposite direction of the dreams he had. But in the midst of all his trials, Joseph did not lose his faith. He understood that the wilderness was not the end of his story, but the preparation for the greatness that lay ahead. Through his time in prison, Joseph gained wisdom, resilience, and patience. His time in isolation was not wasted. It was the very thing that equipped him to lead Egypt through famine and save nations. The wilderness prepared him for his moment of destiny. It's easy to become discouraged in the wilderness, to feel like you're walking in circles with no direction. But in those moments of confusion, when the way forward is unclear, remember that God is working in you. You may not see it now, but the seeds He is planting in you will bear fruit in time. The lessons you are learning, the patience you are developing, the perseverance you are cultivating, all of it is preparing you for something far greater than you can imagine. We often look at those who have achieved great things and think that their success came easily, that their journey was smooth, that they had no setbacks. But the truth is that every great story is born out of struggle. Every powerful leader, every visionary, every world changer has walked through their own wilderness. They have faced their own challenges, their own doubts, their own moments of despair. But they did not give up. They didn't stop moving forward, even when the road was tough. They trusted that the wilderness was not the end, but the place where they were being prepared for something greater. Consider the story of Oprah Winfrey, a woman who has inspired millions around the world. Her rise to success wasn't easy. She faced rejection, ridicule, and setbacks that would have broken many. But Oprah never gave up. She understood that her journey was not about avoiding pain, but about learning through it, growing through it, and becoming stronger in the process. Her wilderness, her struggles, her failures, her painful moments prepared her for the platform she holds today. The hardship she faced was the very thing that equipped her to touch so many lives with her message. Or think about J.K. Rowling, who wrote the Harry Potter books while struggling with poverty, depression, and rejection. She was a single mother living on welfare. Her writing rejected by multiple publishers. It seemed like everything was stacked against her. But she kept going. She kept writing. She kept believing in the power of her dream. And today, she's one of the most successful authors in history. The wilderness didn't stop her. It prepared her. It gave her the strength to keep going when everything told her to quit. The same is true for you. Whatever wilderness you're walking through, understand that it is not wasted. It is preparing you. It is making you stronger. It is equipping you to handle the greatness that God has in store for you. And when you look back on your journey, when you step into the purpose that was always meant for you, you will see that the wilderness was the place where it all began. But how do we navigate the wilderness? How do we endure the isolation, the hardship, the uncertainty? The answer lies in trusting the process, in believing that the struggles we face are not pointless but are shaping us, refining us, preparing us. It requires a deep faith that God is with us in the wilderness, that He is not abandoning us, but walking alongside us every step of the way. And it requires patience, because restoration takes time. God's work in us is not always immediate, but it is always purposeful. You may not see the end result right now, but remember this: the wilderness is a place of growth. It is a place where you are being equipped for the purpose that God has laid before you. It's where your character is built, your faith is deepened, and your strength is forged. So don't run from it. Embrace it. Let it refine you. Let it transform you. And know that, just as Moses and David were prepared in the wilderness, you, too, are being prepared for something far greater than you can imagine. The wilderness may seem like a place of emptiness, but it is actually the fertile ground where your destiny is being cultivated. It may feel like isolation, but it is in this isolation that you will find your truest self. It may feel like struggle, but it is in this struggle that your strength will emerge. And when the time is right, when you have been shaped and refined, when you have been made ready, God will lead you out of the wilderness and into the purpose He has prepared for you. You will step into a future far greater than anything you could have imagined. You will look back on your wilderness journey and see that it was not the end of the road, but the beginning of something extraordinary. You are not lost in the wilderness. You are being prepared for greatness. Keep walking, keep trusting, and know that your purpose is waiting for you on the other side. Faith, hope, and divine purpose. In the moments when life seems at its most unfair, when the storm clouds gather and the weight of the world presses against your chest, it's easy to ask, why me? What did I do to deserve this? We stand in the face of adversity, powerless and weary, our spirits battered by the winds of hardship. The road ahead looks impossible, and the horizon holds no promise of relief. But in those moments, those dark, hopeless moments, there lies a power greater than we can imagine. Adversity, hardship, pain, they do not destroy us. They are not signs of abandonment or failure. They are the very catalysts that refine our faith, that strengthen our hope, and that prepare us for the divine purpose waiting just beyond the horizon. This is the truth we must come to understand. Adversity is not here to break us. It is here to prepare us for greatness. This truth is beautifully illustrated in the life of Joseph. He was a young man with dreams. He was his father's favorite, adorned with a coat of many colors, and yet was brothers, filled with jealousy and bitterness, betrayed him. They sold him into slavery, took away his identity, and left him to suffer in a foreign land. For years, Joseph endured hardship. His dreams seemed like distant, unreachable fantasies, overshadowed by the pain of rejection, betrayal, and loneliness. But here's the thing. Joseph's story did not end in the pit. It didn't end in betrayal. His rise, his transformation, his leadership, it all came through the very adversity that sought to destroy him. Joseph's faith did not falter in the pit. His hope did not die in the prison. In fact, these trials were the crucible that refined his character, that sharpened his vision, and that deepened his trust in the divine purpose that was unfolding, even in the most uncertain of circumstances. Joseph's life is a testament to the power of faith, hope, and divine purpose in the face of hardship. His story shows us that when we stand in the midst of adversity, when we feel abandoned or lost, we are not abandoned at all. We are being prepared. We are being shaped for something greater than we can see, something beyond the pain of the moment. Faith, hope, and divine purpose. These are the forces that transform our struggles into stepping stones. These are the pillars that hold us up when everything around us is crumbling. It's through faith that we trust that there is more beyond the hardship, more beyond the pain. It's through hope that we continue moving forward, even when the future seems uncertain. And it's through divine purpose that we understand that the challenges we face are not random, but are a part of a greater plan, a plan that is unfolding for us, for our good, and for the good of those we will serve. Faith is not simply belief in a higher power. Faith is the conviction that even when we cannot see the way forward, there is a path. Even when we cannot understand the circumstances, we trust that there is a purpose to it all. Faith is the trust that, just like Joseph, we are not forgotten. Even when we are in the darkest places, God is working within us, refining us, shaping us for the purpose we have yet to fulfill. It's easy to have faith when everything is going well. It's easy to believe in the goodness of the universe when we are surrounded by abundance, when we are on the mountaintop, looking at the world with the wind at our backs. But true faith is forged in the valley. It is formed in the fire. It is tested in the hardest moments, when we feel alone, when we feel lost, and when we feel like giving up. That is when faith truly matters. That is when faith makes its mark on our souls. It is in the depth of struggle that we find the true power of belief, belief in ourselves, belief in the process, and belief in God's ability to turn any situation around. Hope is the fuel that keeps us going, even when the path seems impossible to walk. It's what keeps us from giving up, from surrendering to despair. Hope is what makes us rise every morning. Despite the weight we carry, hope is the belief that things can get better. that we can rise from the ashes and rebuild, no matter how many times we've fallen. Joseph didn't just have faith, he had hope. In prison, with no way out, he continued to hope. He could have given up. He could have turned bitter. But instead, he held on to the belief that his story was not finished. His circumstances didn't define him. His purpose was still unfolding, even in the prison cell. And because he held on to hope, when the moment came when the king's dream needed interpretation, Joseph was ready. He had endured the trial. He had been refined. And in that moment, his divine purpose became clear. Hope isn't about wishful thinking. It's about active belief. It's about moving forward, even when you can't see the end. It's about trusting that your struggles are not the end of your story. It's about knowing that, like Joseph, there is something greater coming. Something that will not only change your life, but change the lives of others as well. But faith and hope alone are not enough. There's a third element that is absolutely essential to the journey divine purpose. Divine purpose is the thread that ties it all together. It's the understanding that your life has meaning beyond what you can see in the moment. It's knowing that the pain, the trials, the setbacks, they are all part of a greater plan. And when you begin to understand that, when you begin to see the hand of God moving in your life, even in the darkest moments, you gain the clarity and courage to move forward. Joseph's rise to power wasn't just about him. It wasn't just about his personal success. His purpose was greater than that. He was raised up to save his family, to save a nation, and to fulfill the divine promise that had been given to his ancestors. His purpose was tied to a greater vision, a vision that could only be fulfilled after years of preparation. God didn't just put Joseph through hardship for no reason. He was preparing him for a moment of destiny. He was preparing him to fulfill a role that would change the course of history. The same is true for you. Your purpose is not small. It is not insignificant. Even when you're in the wilderness, even when you're facing trials that seem insurmountable, God is preparing you for something greater than you can imagine. The adversity you face today is not a sign that you are on the wrong path. It is a sign that you are being refined, that your faith and hope are being tested, and that you are being shaped into the person who can carry out the purpose that lies ahead. But here's the truth. You will not find that purpose in comfort. You will not find it by avoiding adversity. You will find it in the fire, in the moments when you feel like giving up, in the times when everything seems lost. It is in those moments that your faith will be deepened, your hope will be tested, and your purpose will be made clear. Look at the lives of the great men and women who have changed the world. They didn't get there by avoiding pain. They got there by leaning into it. They got there by holding on to faith, hope, and the understanding that their purpose was greater than their circumstances. They didn't run from hardship. They used it to fuel their transformation. Oprah Winfrey, who faced early years of abuse and hardship, found her voice and purpose not in her success, but in her suffering. She didn't let her past define her. She transformed it into a message of hope and empowerment that has touched millions around the world. She found her divine purpose through her pain. Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison, didn't let adversity break him. Instead, he used that time to strengthen his resolve, to deepen his faith, and to prepare himself for the leadership that would change a nation. His purpose was clear. He was meant to bring justice, equality, and peace to South Africa. And it was through his years of hardship that he was prepared to fulfill that purpose. And you, too, are being prepared. The adversity you face today is not the end of your story. It is the preparation for the greatness that lies ahead. Your faith is being deepened. Your hope is being tested. And your divine purpose is being revealed. Trust that the challenges you are facing are not random. They are part of a greater plan. They are part of your journey to becoming the person you were always meant to be. And as you continue to trust in your faith, to hold on to hope, and to walk in your divine purpose, you will find the strength to rise above every obstacle. You will find the resilience to keep moving forward. And when the time comes, you will step into your destiny just as Joseph did. You will rise not because of your own strength, but because of the faith, hope, and divine purpose that have carried you through. And when you do, you will see that all of the trials, all of the hardship, were not in vain. They were the very things that prepared you for the greatness you were always meant to achieve. Your story is not finished. You are being prepared for something greater than you can see. Keep walking, keep believing, and know that you are being refined for your divine purpose.